What a great venue.
It is a great venue. We found it. I was actually going for a site check for work. And I saw it. And I thought, oh, this would be perfect. This is what Trevor sort of wanted, that sort of vibe, the industrial brick.
Concrete
floors. We knew we wanted to be central. We did not want our guests to have to like schlep out to Sherwood Park. Not that Sherwood Park's that far. Right. But we just wanted to be central for everyone.
Welcome back, everyone. I am here again with Lars Erickson. We are going to dive into a case study, and the case study hits home for both of us, more so for you.
That's right.
But we're going to talk about your wedding.
From June 4th, 2022.
Wow.
Just almost 2 years ago.
Doesn't it feel like it was yesterday, but also it was a while ago?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. Like anything.
Like anything. Yeah. But I kind of want to dive in. I want to pick your brain. I think it's pretty cool that you're in the event industry. You put on this, I think, elaborate wedding. I think there was lots of logistics and dynamics and locations. So I kind of want to pick your brain about what you would say to each couple, what you went through, what was stressful, what you would change, what you loved, all of that kind of stuff.
Okay, sounds great.
Let's get started. So you had your ceremony at the Fairmont.
That's right. My husband, Trevor, always wanted to get married at the Fairmont. That was his dream, his desire, and so we had to find a way to make that happen.
Right.
Luckily, the team at the Fairmont is great. It was coming out of COVID. Yeah. We were expecting approximately 150 guests, so it was too big for the Wedgwood room, and we wanted it to actually be outside,
right,
on the terrace. So we were able to make that happen.
And the terrace of the Fairmont is beautiful. Was it stressful planning a wedding outside or a ceremony outside? I mean, it is quick. There are backup plans you probably had, but...
Yeah, so the nice thing about the Fairmont is that the Fairmont Hotel MacDonald is that you have to have a backup plan inside. So there's no stress wondering, like, where are we going to go? Because you know where you're going to go. The bigger stress was making the decision whether or not to stay outside or go inside, because the forecast looked great. Then we woke up in the morning, and it was forecasting rain for right around the time of our ceremony. Luckily, I know some people in the industry. So we have a good friend who's a meteorologist, so I called him in a panic and asked him, and he's like, well, he was going to look and see what he could do in terms of the forecast, or like if it was going to rain. And I called another good friend who was a wedding planner and asked her what to do. And she said, make the decision early and stick with it. Like, so don't double guess yourself and just and go with it. But if you're like in your heart of hearts you want it outside, then just go with it outside, even if it has to start 15 minutes later because of a shower or whatever.
And I think that's great advice. So you're not going back and forth, because I know I would struggle with that. And it would be a tug and pull. It would be 1 minute you see the sun, you'd be like, let's have it outside. And then it would get foggy and you'd be like, are we making the right decision? But I think that's great advice, and you can always push it back.
That's right.
Everything can be pushed back. Yeah. So it was out in not the terrace, but the balcony of the Fairmont.
Yeah, it was on the
terrace. What happened inside? How did your guest enter? What was the experience like? Did you create an experience?
Well, we certainly did.
How could you not?
We tried to. So guests entered through the Empire Ballroom, where we had a beer tub set up. I mean, quite a fancy beer tub, I guess. But we just wanted people to be able to grab canned drinks or just something casual quickly while they listened to a musician that Trevor had picked. So they sort of had drinks and mixed and mingled there before the ceremony. And then everyone moved out onto the terrace. The musicians went out onto the terrace. And then we got married.
That sounds so lovely. I mean, I was there, I was present, and it was very lovely.
Yeah, it was nice.
I think too, a lot of couples may forget this part, but you also had cocktail tables in the Empire Ballroom and lounge, so people could kind of mix and mingle. It wasn't just like get out to the ceremony. It was like a process to kind of mix and mingle, get a drink. Yeah. All of that.
We wanted to fill the space up a little bit so that it didn't just seem like an empty ballroom. We wanted to be intentional, so that's why the cocktail tables and, like you said, the lounge seating. We also knew that some guests are older, and like my husband's grandparents, and they will probably be there an hour before the ceremony, if not more.
Love those
They just got to make sure they have parking, make sure they know where they're going, make sure even though...
I wish I was more like that in my day-to-day
Yeah, me
sometimes.
too. My family, on the other hand, was showing up 3 minutes late. But so anyway, we wanted a space for people to go in and be able to mix and, and sort of feel comfortable. And like you said, sit down if they wanted to sit, stand at a cocktail table, and just sort of be a casual way to start the ceremony or to start the day, really, because that was the start of the entire wedding day.
So would you recommend kind of that for brides? If they were doing a ceremony outside and they had like a little, I don't know, like bar set up inside, would you recommend maybe some, not soft seating, but to add something to the room?
Oh, yeah,
I think
definitely.
it added a lot.
I think so too. And we wanted it to be like not just be an empty ballroom, right? And so we wanted it to be an experience for people to come in.
And it's the Fairmont. Because you got married, your reception was somewhere else.
That's right.
It was?
Where? So we got... The reception was at the Foundry Room, OEX. So the one on just off Jasper, the original.
Yeah. What a great venue.
It is a great venue. We found it. I was actually going for a site check for work. And I saw it. And I thought, this would be perfect. This is what Trevor sort of wanted, that sort of vibe, the industrial brick.
Concrete
floors. We knew we wanted to be central. We did not want our guests to have to like schlep out to Sherwood Park. Not that Sherwood Park's that far. Right. But we just wanted to be central for everyone. And so that worked. And that was the only weekend that they had free. The weekend we wanted was the only weekend we had free. They had free. So it worked out perfectly.
Fate.
Yeah.
That is really great. This topic I really want to dive into because you didn't do something traditional.
No, we did a cocktail.
And a couple episodes back, me and Kaitlyn were talking about cocktail style versus like a traditional reception with like plated dinner and all of that stuff. Right. And a lot of people are scared of the cocktail style, or maybe they think it's a lot of work. What would you say to that? I think it is a lot of work.
Oh, it's a lot of work. Like, and we are spoiled in the sense that we have an entire team with the rental company behind us to be able to haul in a truck or two worth of rentals, because you're not using what the venue has on site, really. Like you're hauling in couches and back bars and bookcases and cocktail tables, and we hauled in a dance floor. Even though we could have just danced in the concrete, but Kaitlyn and my husband Trevor said no. So dance floor, and then all the barware, and so we had 4 signature cocktails, and so it was, so there was a lot of stuff behind the scenes, and then even creating an area there for the caterer to work, because it was it's just a bit different. So we were had to block off an area for them to do some plating, and we had different stations. Rather than a sit-down dinner, which was very important to Trevor and I. We didn't want like sort of a standard sit-down dinner. So, but that also takes up room, and you don't think it does. You're like, oh, it's a table with a server, but there just needs to be room around it for people to mix and mingle. So, we did have a few a few tables set up for family for the speeches.
Mm-hmm. So they could sit around.
They could sit around. I think there was 4 6-foot tables, and I think we crammed maybe 12 chairs at each, because they weren't sitting there to eat. They were really just sitting there.
There was no place settings.
There were no place settings.
Them sitting so they could,
Somewhere for them to gather, but also just somewhere for them to sit during the speeches, which Trevor had in a very tight timeline of 2 minutes each, and I think he was timing it,
which I think people obeyed.
Yeah. Oh,
it was
absolutely.
Great.
Yeah.
And a short and sweet speech is sometimes nice, and
absolutely
it doesn't drag on.
That's right.
But it sounds like there's a lot for you and Trevor. That sounds like a lot of decisions. Like there's everything down to the forks that are going onto the station. What are you going to like? At each station, it was a different theme.
Right.
So you had seafood, you had charcuterie, you had pizza.
We had short ribs. We had like a short rib mashed potato bar.
And I know it's easy for us to kind of pick and pair what goes for like with each station, but it's still a lot of work.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it was. And it, my tendency would have been to go much more simple, but my husband's tendency is to go much more elaborate. So there was a bit of a conflict or a dynamic there where I just wanted simple. I just thought, we can as long as there's vodka and wine and gin, we're good to go.
It's gonna be happy.
Everyone's gonna be happy. But he wanted a mood, and it was beautiful. And so we like, as an example, I didn't think we needed to bring in a lighting company. We brought in a lighting company.
I was all for that, by the way.
I know you were.
Yes.
Vince from Keylight.
Yep.
And he did an amazing job. And he was very, what I thought was reasonable. Like, it's like, it made such a difference in the room by having that, by spending that extra little bit on that.
It sets an ambiance.
Yeah.
Because I feel like you guys wanted something like a little swanky, upscale, casual, but
yeah.
I'm also curious to know if the reason why you had to go more elaborate was because it wasn't traditional. Did you kind of was Trevor feeling like that? Like, since we're not doing a traditional dinner, sit down dinner, let's think about lighting. Let's think about each station. Let's make it a whole experience as the guests walk in the door to when they leave.
Yeah. And I think that's part of it.
A little bit
right?
more pressure.
Yeah, a little more, because like we'd had different cocktail or lounge seating areas. Mm-hmm. So you have each of those, and then, and then the lighting there. So because you don't want just the lights, the fluorescent lights on, obviously, but you want certain areas probably lit a little bit more than you want other areas. We wanted some lights at the entrance because it was a little bit dark over there, but we didn't. I believe we even hung chandeliers, right? We even hung chandeliers over the dance floor that I was also against, but they were beautiful. And
they were. Everything turned out, but I kind of want to give the listeners a little bit of a description as to, because I had a big helping hand in the decor.
Yes.
If anyone knows the Foundry Room, it's concrete floors. It is an industrial ceiling where it's exposed. Mm-hmm. You have brick, you have windows, you kind of have this L shape. Everything is just very industrial. Mm-hmm. So you walk in, we created this little walkway using some dividers, and we hung lights off of that, industrial, like vintage lights. And then you walked into this space where you had low seating.
Right.
We had no high, like you guys had no high seating. I say we because
she designed
we were all in there, but it wasn't. It was mainly Lars and Trevor. You had low seating, like you said. The tables were in the front. You did have a sweetheart table underneath the chandelier that was already there behind, like in front of the brick wall.
Yeah.
Colors were navy and burgundy. We had a dance floor with chandeliers hanging from it. Lighting. It was like an amber lighting.
Yeah.
It was amber.
Yeah. Trevor wanted amber lighting, and Vince was able to do that. So it was like sort of very warm. Lighting
and
was
Vince was quite kind. He hung the chandeliers for us as well. And
that's right. Not that he'll do that for everyone. Maybe it's because I'm nice to him.
Don't ask him.
But lighting was so important to Trevor that we went a year before the wedding. So we had booked the venue about 15 months prior to the wedding.
Right.
So around the week of our wedding, a year before, we went so we could see what the lighting would look like, because it was June. So we knew it was going to be light. We wanted to sort of see, did we want the blinds up? Did we want them down? Mm-hmm. Sort of how much natural light did we want to let into the building? And so that's how important lighting was to Trevor. And so,
I remember all that. I remember going there, shutting the blinds, having been, it was, it's an emotional process. And when you're putting that much time, energy, and money into something, you kind of want it to be perfect.
That's right. Yeah.
And so back to the decor for 1 second, but the dance floor was in the middle. You also had a guitar player in the middle of the dance floor as people walked in, serenading everyone with nice tunes. But on either side of the dance floor, you had lounge areas.
That's right. Yep.
So if you kind of, floor lounge areas that could sit around 8, I would say.
Yeah, I think so. I would say 8 to.
Which was so nice because after everything was done, like sitting with, a pocket of people and mingling and catching up and all of that, it was a good size area. It wasn't, no one was afraid to sit down.
That's right.
So I thought that all worked out really great. The colors, Fabloomosity also came in and did beautiful florals on your candelabras and tables. So that was pretty special.
Yeah, one of the things that Fabloomosity did that was great, and Ginny's a good friend of ours, is they took the floral from the ceremony and they designed it in a way that they were able to then use it at the reception. And sort of broke it down and were able to use it again, which I think is amazing because it's just, it does help save some costs. It does in terms of, the supplies, but at the same time, I mean, they're made once. You might as well use them all day.
Yeah, and I think people don't even think of that.
Yeah.
Like brides don't think of that. They think of, they're at the ceremony, they could come over to the reception, but I think it's a great idea to multi-use them and reuse them and save cost, and they were beautiful.
They absolutely were.
And they looked so different from the ceremony to the reception.
That's right.
They did a great job transforming that. You wouldn't actually have never known.
Yeah, like I think at another wedding, the floral that is on the arch, maybe behind you getting married, goes and is on the backdrop behind the head table. Like
Right.
that's a good way to sort of reuse that.
Yeah. But it was pretty cool. They kind of broke it up and put it on different tables. So that was super sweet. The Foundry Room also doesn't have a location for caterers.
No, they don't.
It is tight.
It is tight.
So we came up with a great plan.
Yeah, draped.
You did actually.
Yeah, so we draped off one corner or one wall.
The back of the room.
The back of the room. And put tables against there.
One had almost like imagine like a long skinny hallway.
A galley kitchen, really.
Yeah. And you would never know they were there because you just created a wall. So it was like...
And it was a wall that we wanted to cover anyway, because they had some other things hanging there, so that we didn't that didn't sort of fit into our theme. So we wanted it covered, so it worked out perfectly. The one thing I forgot to do for them was get a light for the caterers.
So they were in the dark.
So it was pretty dark. They did open up the blinds on that end so they could see, but that was my mistake because I had planned it and I forgot about it.
I feel like we also, or someone put an uplight in there for them.
Maybe they did, yeah.
They were like glowing. It was great. But the food stations, let's dive into that. I know we just talked to Cora and everything kind of flowed really well together. I think a big thing, I just want to talk about the stations, but back to the lounge, I think mixing tables and lounge is important for those people that do want to sit. Yeah. The elders of each side of the family, but it also creates a sense where like they can sit and eat. Yeah. They can gather all their, short ribs and potatoes and they can sit where other people would like to stand around a cocktail table or sit at the lounge. So I think that is important to consider when doing a cocktail.
Absolutely. Not everyone is comfortable, standing around,
So I thought it was well done and 150 people in there.
It was tight.
But it didn't really feel tight. At times there were pockets.
I know you want to go to food, but
yes, this is just a good topic.
A last minute addition, and thankfully the weather was perfect for it. Was we created a lounge a hockey lounge out on the patio. Mm-hmm. So the Oilers were playing in the playoffs, and there was a game on that night, along with other hockey games. And my family are big Oilers/hockey fans. And I knew that they wouldn't attend. No, they would. I knew that they would appreciate having the hockey game on. So we set up a TV on the back patio with some outdoor seating, some cocktail tables, and I think it sat about 32 people. Yeah. I would say.
And it was great because people were going outside, so it kind of
people could check on the game.
Up some space.
People could go outside and visit. It was a little cooler out there, so it actually worked out perfectly.
And I just want to let everyone know it was an Oilers theme out there.
We did, yeah.
There was, orange pillows, blue linen. We had the TV. It was like a whole hockey theme.
Yeah, and it was great.
Yeah,
it was even nice for me, like to go out and visit with people out there, and yeah.
Yeah, I thought. Well done, good addition. Because
that
didn't come around. That was not like planned.
No, that was a
last minute thing.
Like 3 days before.
Yep.
Maybe even sooner. And because I knew what would happen otherwise, but people would have their phones perched on a table or somewhere. So it's like we might as well embrace it. Mm-hmm. I did shut it off for the speeches. And they all groaned, but they got over it.
They groaned at me, yep.
Yeah.
I was like, thanks, Lars. I'll go tell them.
But no, and then it went back on. So no, it was a great addition, and it's sort of a lesson to to embrace maybe what's going around you or embrace some last minute things. Like it doesn't, if something like that or an opportunity like that comes up, just embrace it and do it well.
Yeah, and I think you did it well, and it became a whole thing.
Yeah.
And it was a good addition for you and Trevor.
Yeah, because
it was a good experience for everyone. It didn't,
yeah,
like you said, no one had their phones up or were taking away from you and Trevor.
Mm-hmm.
You embraced it.
Yeah.
So I thought that was great. Food stations.
Yeah, so
food stations. How many stations did we have, or you have? I keep saying we. I'm so sorry, Trevor. It was your day, and not
Trevor always says my wedding, and I have to be like our wedding.
Our wedding. I'm opposite. It's we.
But so I'd have to go through them. So we had a mashed potato bar with short ribs. We had a seafood station. We had a flatbread and warm pretzel station, charcuterie, and I feel like I'm missing something. But
Pizza?
Well, that was the flatbread and pretzels.
Flatbread.
Because that was available when people came in, that and the charcuterie, then the seafood and the shore ribs. And then desserts, I guess. Yeah. I think that sounds it.
And who did the catering?
So Stir Catering, Xana from Stir Catering, she did an amazing job. And she was so easy to work with. Right. And really, and we also had past appetizers as people arrived. People need to try her pierogi tarts because they are amazing.
She's just pretty good.
Yeah,
she's great, and I think she's really good at the style that you wanted.
That's right. Yes, and that's why we chose her. I mean, there's lots of great caterers in Edmonton,
absolutely.
But it was she sort of fit the style that Trevor, like the vision that Trevor had was basically what Xana is able to do and does well. So.
And she comes with all of her own stuff, other than the stuff that we picked out for people to eat on. But all of her serving trays are beautiful. Like, it kind of just matched the theme, but not too much.
That's right.
It was still unique.
Yeah. Yeah, it was great.
Was that the biggest?
Expense?
Like, not expense.
It was.
Catering is expense.
Catering is not your big.
Expensive.
Food is, I would say, food and bar are your biggest expenses,
absolutely.
Or can be. I mean, you can make anything you want your biggest expense. Your dress could be your biggest expense, but. Yeah, no, you could. Food was important for us, and we wanted lots of it, and we wanted variety.
So, just you saying that, was it the most stressful part? Kind of picking out the menu, what to go with at each station, kind of making sure they all kind of went together, but they were different. Like that's a big decision.
Yeah,
to feed everyone.
I mean, yes. I mean,
or did she just help you along?
If I remember correctly, she gave us a survey and we provided feedback on things we liked. It included, I believe, like our favorite restaurants in Edmonton, our favorite dishes. It included, are there any family favorites, that, or, family traditions maybe. So there were questions like that sort of gave her an opportunity. She created a menu, sent it back. We we made some changes and sent it back, and there was some back and forth, but and then there were other things that I've had of hers at catering, like at events, and I was like, okay, so I need the lemon tarts, like it's like
or the s'mores cookies,
or it's just sort of things that were non-negotiable, but. So yeah, that was stressful, but I'm trying to think.
I would just feel like it would change a lot for me as you went on. Like you would see something, or you would see Xana at an event, just in the role you are in in the industry, and I would just continuously maybe second guess or change things around.
Yeah, and we did. Like I went to an event for Win House, and she served. It was like shaved rare roast beef with a horseradish cream on these baguettes, or I forget what they were on exactly, and they were not on our menu, but I took something else off and added them as one of the past appetizers because they were so good.
So it can happen.
Yeah.
You don't have to, once the decision's made and you're weeks, months out, you can.
Yeah, this was months out. Like I wasn't calling her up the day before and being like, hey.
But you can change things.
You can change.
It's okay. It's okay too.
Absolutely. I feel like that. And
there's no reason why you couldn't.
And us working in the rental industry, like, you can change things. Like, let us know if you want to change things, because we can make that work. If it's available, we'll do it. It's not. Absolutely. You're not locked in stone.
Which is funny, because I think people do feel that way sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. I think they think once they've made
the decision. And you know what? Decision makers are decision makers, and sometimes that's nice to just make a decision and move on. But for the people that do hum and haw, you can change.
That's right.
You can change, absolutely. Just give any of your vendors a call, and I think that they would, with the right amount of time, they'd be happy to change some things up for you.
And it's like going back, I mean, talking a little bit about that, but like the Foundry Room has chairs, Black Chevar chairs. And we decided that they fit the theme. Were there chairs in special event rentals inventory that maybe we wanted a little bit better? Maybe, perhaps. But they were on site. They fit our theme. It just made sense to do that rather than hauling up, 74, 80, 84 chairs.
And then dealing with their chairs.
And then having to deal with their chairs and store them and stuff. So there are times where, you sort of have to take a look at some of the decisions you make, like us getting married at the Fairmont. Okay, and so like, maybe there was something there that, like, the big ballroom isn't ideal for us have guests walk through, but we sort of made it work, right? Mm-hmm. And we by filling it up with the lounge furniture and the cocktail tables and the big bar in the center, and then at the Foundry Room, it's like, well, they have chairs. Let's use their chairs. Let's embrace some of the things that they have to make our life a little simpler, or.
And it did just that.
Yeah, exactly.
So you mentioned a little bit ago that the two biggest things that were important to you and Trevor were food and bar.
Right.
Let's talk about your bar, because that was a lot of work for you guys. It made it even more special when guests arrived. But you also made it so personal and unique. Like you incorporated your little fur babies.
Yeah, so we have 4 dogs. Well, we have 3 dogs. We have had 4 dogs together. And so Trevor wanted, and I don't know where he got the idea or saw it, but he wanted a signature cocktail named after each one of our dogs. So we have London. So hers was based on a gin. We have Frankfurt, and his was a bourbon-based drink. Florence was a vodka-based drink, and then little baby V, we had a puppy who passed away, and so hers was a non-alcoholic drink for family members and guests who didn't drink. So we did a virgin blueberry mojito. Mm-hmm. So it was actually a lot of fun too. We worked with some of Trevor's friends that are in the bar industry. So we worked with some of them to create cocktails. We came up with ideas and sort of tried them. Then we went over there with all the supplies, and he taught us how to batch them. So you could, instead of making one cocktail at a time, you could make 20 of them at a time, so that it was easier for the bar staff to do, so that there wasn't a lineup. Because that was another thing we didn't want. We paid extra to have an extra bartender, because we just didn't want people to have to wait in line too long. I mean, within reason, for a drink.
Yeah. Well, 2 things I got from that. One thing I want to say is the guests ate up those cocktails, and more so just the thought that went behind them.
Right, because we had pictures of the dogs with the.
It was a whole thing. It was a whole bar campaign, and everyone was taking photos with the posters. They were everywhere. The dogs were there. The cocktails were there. Like you kind of envisioned it before you even got the cocktail, and then it was just like a nice reward. So that was special, and everyone appreciated it. Mm-hmm. So I think little things like that, attention to detail, or making it a bit more unique, or advertising what's important to you. And I think your point got across. Everyone loved it.
Well, and even at the bar, so I hate waiting in line, but that's fine. Trevor wanted a slideshow at the wedding, and I did not want a slideshow. I think he wanted it. Anyway, there was a decision made to have a slideshow. So what we did is there was a space above the bar. So we had our slideshow running the entire evening above the bar. So if you were standing at the bar waiting for your drink, you could watch the slideshow. So it was there, and it was something sort of to talk about or point at or watch while you were waiting for your drink. But it wasn't sort of everyone sit down and watch the slideshow.
I have a funny story about the slideshow. I don't know if you remember, but right where you were going to project the slideshow, Lars, there was a hanging piece of greenery.
Which we moved.
And I moved thinking that was okay. Well, it was not okay. The Foundry Room did not appreciate that at all, but it was just hooked up there. Sorry to the Foundry Room, but we put it back. But it was a thing.
Yeah, and it had been discussed with the previous employee. So,
but sometimes people they overlap each other. I think it's also important to kind of go back to the bar lineup, because we're in the industry. We've been to events, we've been to weddings, we've done events, all of those things. That is important to you, but that's sometimes not on anyone else's radar, and I think it should be.
Yes.
I think you should properly think about, if the bar is important and you do have a crowd that is into drinking and having a great time, either have 2 bars, or plan bartenders, or plan a self-serve area where you can kind of pick up a cooler or a wine, because that's a hub. It's almost like a kitchen of a home. The bar is the home of a wedding, honestly, most of the time.
Yeah, and there's a few things people can do to alleviate that I would suggest to anyone is pass out a signature drink as soon as people arrive. So if people have something in their hand, then they don't necessarily need to go up to the bar. And that could just be a glass of bubbly, alcoholic or non-alcoholic. And, as you know, I have much of my family doesn't drink. So for the toasts later on, we had trays pre-poured of non-alcoholic and alcoholic, so that it's not awkward and people aren't asking and people aren't waiting for it to be poured. But anyway, going back, so when people arrive, handing out a signature cocktail, glass of bubbly, whatever you want to hand out, something. I mean, it can be it could be a can of pop for just to give something.
It's one way to have everyone have a drink and.
Yeah. And then you're right, like having a few, maybe like a fun little beer station or like a beer tub.
Grab and go.
Even if it is manned, which, probably has to be in most venues, but just having it and there's lots of fun mixed drinks in cans now. And so especially if it's before your ceremony, after your ceremony, as the reception's starting, just having something that people can grab.
And it relieves the bar a little bit. It creates breathing room.
But they also need to have room in front of the bar because I feel lots of times people don't leave enough room in front of their bar for a lineup, for a bit of a lineup. And so if you put cocktail tables there, or if it's too close to your head table, or if it's too close to a guest table, well, it's then it's no fun for anyone. So just making sure that there's a good space there for people to sort of stand in. And depending on your crowd, and it depends on your on your space, but just making sure there's room for people.
Yeah, I think those are all great pointers, and it's going to help couples because not a lot of people think these things through when you're not in events and this is your first wedding. You kind of just fly by the seat of your pants.
Yeah. And that's
you rely on, opinions of other people. You rely on just your own knowledge. So I think that is great.
Like thinking about the flow of your event is important, I think.
Absolutely. So you had 150 guests.
That's right.
How many bartenders did you have?
I think there might have been 4 to start, and then we went down to 3 after I would say dinner, but after the speeches, after 9:00.
Yeah, and I think that was a good enough number. Yep. And you had a signature drink as they walked in, and then you also had a toast. So there was lots of pockets to alleviate the bar and the bar staff.
Yeah.
So I don't remember waiting in line longer than a minute. Like it wasn't like tapping my foot for a drink.
Yeah, and we did pay as you wish. So that also eliminates, I guess, the payment process. Right. But guess you might want to look at a different, if you are having a cash bar. Does it make sense to have one person selling tickets just sort of to alleviate the actual bar line? Are the bartenders, are they well equipped? Is there more than one machine that you can tap or that you can use? Because we've all been at a bar or waiting for a drink and they're like, oh, I've got to wait for the machine, where you could have grabbed your drinks and gone and someone else could be getting served. So there's just sort of, some things to think about and just, and it's usually only for the first hour or two is the big rush, I would say, at a bar for most events. Maybe right after dinner.
I was just going to say, after dinner is pretty...
people are getting up, stretching their legs, grabbing a...
Speeches too.
Yeah.
I would also consider maybe 2 bars if you had the space for 150 guests. Create 2 areas, but that's all depending on your space and how you're going to work it. But having 2 areas, if that is something you can achieve, I would go that direction.
Yeah.
2 bars, 2 lineups, 2 flows.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
So that is wonderful. Let's talk about just a planner or someone that was there to help you. Me.
You were there.
And how much that did help. And
absolutely.
Everything is different on the day of. You guys have planned it, you know what's happening, but you guys are also getting married and want to enjoy your day.
That's right.
So insert someone that.
Yes. It's from as things as little as pinning on your boutonniere. Like I probably could make it work or figure it out, but having someone who knows how to do that. But also that just make sure that it's on and ready to go for when you walk down the aisle or you're getting ready to walk down the aisle. And Trevor and I didn't want to see each other before the ceremony. And so I was going to meet him at the front of the ceremony, but guests were a little late getting seated, as is pretty normal at a wedding. And so just having someone, so I'm not texting Trevor being like, don't come in yet, sort of thing. Having someone communicating there, someone to communicate with the musicians. I'm trying to think of a few other.
I think it's cool to have, if you can always have a planner or a day of coordinator, I think it's the way to go. But it's even more important to have a body like a coordinator or a planner when everything's kind of spread out. Like we did not get married. You guys got married at the Fairmont. You went to the Foundry Room. There was things in between that were happening. Things had to be tightened up at the Foundry Room. Things had to, be in place for the Fairmont. Having to not deal with any of that was nice.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things we did too is we put, besides having you, I sort of had one sister who was in charge of my family and making sure that my family knew what they were doing, or if people had questions, that she was the point of contact. And same thing with sort of Trevor's friends and family. On his side, we had someone who sort of was just a bit of a contact that everyone knew and that they could go to if they had a question about parking. I mean, there's anything. It's funny, the little things that come up and people have questions about,
or even your vendors. Vendors are also important. Are they on time? Are they running late? Caterers sometimes run late because of just things that happen, or the ceremony was so late that the reception was pulled back or pushed back. Yeah. So there's a lot of things that do go wrong, unfortunately, on wedding days that a planner can just kind of sweep under the rug and make all work her magic.
Yeah, one thing that we did do, but I would go back and redo again, is our list for the photographs. So we didn't have a ton of family photos. We did quick ones with each side of the family, and we wanted some with certain friends. And I don't think we wrote the friends that we wanted necessarily to make sure we got pictures with down. And so there were a few groups of friends or a few really close friends that I wish we'd gotten professional photos with. So I would just say, just making sure you write down, and I think most photographers ask you to do it. And the family is sort of like the easy one to think about, but maybe if there's any really close friends that you wanted to get a photo with quickly. And you can do it unobtrusively so that not everyone's thinking, why didn't I get a photo? But they could just stand by the side while your family photos are taken. They quickly come in, you do a snap or two, and off they go. So
yeah, and they can know about it beforehand.
They know, yeah. So right, so we're not searching for them. Yeah, so it's just sort of that was one thing, because we did have a few, like I said, a few friends that were like, oh, we didn't actually get pictures with.
And I think that's funny, because I think a lot of brides, they do that. That's a last minute thing. Getting together all mom's in this photo, your mom's in that photo. So thinking outside the box and really making that special and making it worth your time with the photographer is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
And it's just sort of they step in, they step out, and it's really fast. And
I saw this new trend on TikTok.
Oh, great.
I know you love TikTok.
Absolutely.
But it is a group photo with the table. So the bride and groom, instead of doing they're kind of tying everything in together. So instead of going and doing a receiving line after the ceremony, they go around to each table with their photographer. They say thank you, and they do a quick group photo with the table. And I thought that was pretty.
Well, that's kind of nice.
And all the ones on TikTok I see are all really
Are there dirty dishes in them?
Some of them.
Okay, just
some
checking.
of them. Yeah. It depends on when you do that, and that's something that you don't really think about going into it. But I thought it was a pretty cool. Yeah, I think it makes everyone feel involved. You thank them. Yeah. There's a photo. They can go back and they're like, no, I did attend that wedding. That's a photo. It's a good feeling to see yourself in a photo at a wedding. So I just wanted to share that TikTok that I recently saw, which I wish you did.
Well, we didn't really have photos or tables, I should say. So yes, but yes,
it's a good one. I think this kind of wraps it up, but I want to wrap it up with kind of what you would suggest to each bride. Would you do a cocktail style reception again if you had to redo it in your 10-year anniversary with Trevor?
There will not be another.
That would
party.
Be really fun. And any tips and tricks you want to leave us with?
Yeah, I would definitely do cocktail again. I love. But I just love a good cocktail party. It's
a different atmosphere.
It's a different atmosphere. It's less formal, so we felt that with our family and friend dynamics, with lots of different friend groups and things, that it was a good way for us to mix and mingle and visit with everyone.
Did you feel like you saw everyone?
Yes, I did. Yeah, I think,
because everyone's
and
up
we
and
really
walking
did try. We had some friends who had gotten married a year or two before, and they said, I think it was the year before, and they said, one of them actually stopped us about when the food was being served and said, go get a plate of food right now and sit down and eat, which I'm so grateful for, because that was the only food we really ate. We wish we would have been able to try more of the food, but we were so busy. But so that would be one trick, one thing is making sure that you eat, and B, you have someone who's sort of forcing you to. But no, definitely do a cocktail party again. I love it. And I loved, the signature cocktails were fun, and it was, they were all able to be sort of made virgin, so non-alcoholic, so which is nice for different guests. I like the sort of the casual atmosphere, so we like that. One tip I would say, you keep talking about brides, but for grooms is get a custom suit made. We had our suits made. I bet you it wasn't much more than buying a good suit off the rack and then getting it tailored. but it was like you felt so good in it. We got extra shirts made, so we wore white shirts and bow ties for the ceremony. For the reception, we changed into black shirts, and then we took our bow ties off later off in the evening. But it was just nice to be able to sort of change shirts, freshen up. But yeah, like the custom suits were great. They make you feel good. They're not. They make them tight. They say they're to look good in pictures, not to feel good in real life, and it's true.
The process though of getting the suits was great too. Like I think it was like for both grooms. Yeah. You guys picked out it was a whole process, and it was fun and it was creative. And
we used suits by Curtis Elliott, and they were great. And the most nervous thing for me was picking, which is funny because I pick fabric, like tablecloths, linens from swatches of fabric, but to pick a suit from a piece of fabric that's like the size of your thumbnail, I mean, it's a little
hard.
bigger than that. It's like, you're sort of like, okay, what's it going to look like on me, not just from this little swatch. So, but no, they did great.
Yeah, it was a good experience.
Through the whole process. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. I like that. All right. Well, anything else you want to say before we end this, Lars? Thank you for coming.
You're welcome.
Thank you
My
for
pleasure.
Dissecting your own wedding with me.
Yeah,
and until next time.
Sounds great.
Thanks for listening to the Special Event Rental Podcast. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to never miss an episode.